This video is a video response to Yusef's response to TKnightcrawler or TKnightcrawler, whatever your name really is. Um, this isn't aimed at TKnightcrawler, so this is just making conversation with Yusef. I figured, I need a break from video games, so I'm going to do a video on this, and because you appealed to my interests, I'm going to show you a book here called The Ancients in Their Own Words by Michael Kerrigan and Fall River. There it is. Beautiful book. It was on clearance when I got it from Barnes& and Noble. But I got it because I was looking through the clearance section and there's always something good there. There's always something good there. Josephus clearance. Um, Church Fathers clearance. I found a bunch of stuff on clearance. Clearance rocks. Okay. This has stuff on Israel and the Holy Land on page 70. And Yusuf is absolutely 100% right. I took an archaeology class in college, and here's my textbook from that class, which is an awesome textbook. It's one of the good ones. Colin Renfrew and Paul Bond, Archaeology, College Edition. Awesome book. And this actually has all the stuff that you could possibly bring up on a video about archaeology. Now, when I have the time, maybe I'll go into that. See, the thing is just because someone makes a claim about something doesn't mean that they are an authority on it. Doesn't mean that they've actually read everything on it. So there's the problem is there's a lot of people running around making claims about archaeology, a lot of atheists, but none of them know anything about archaeology most of the time. I've actually pwned um, atheists in archaeology and astronomy debates in the middle of class because they tried to ask stupid questions. They're the ones that have all the conspiracy theories most of the time, and they call us black jobs. I mean, they're the ones with the crazy conspiracy theories. All those come from New Agers and atheists. So a New Ager is basically an atheist. It's someone who thinks they're spiritual, but really they're atheists, don't believe in God, and aren't spiritual at all. They can't be spiritual without God. It doesn't even make any sense. Because if there is no higher spiritual power, then there is no spirituality. There's nothing. Okay, so it goes into Israel and the Holy Land, and it talks about all these things, and it has the Ebla archives in here, which have so many links to the Old Testament in terms of names and other things like that. They have calendars that are written in Paleo Hebrew. They have the Moabite stone, like you're talking about. There's the Moabite stone. That's it right there. Okay. And what it says is it says, I am Mesha, the son of Chemosh, king of Moab. So he's not saying he's literally the son of Chemosh. He's saying he's the son of God. The Moabite god was Chemosh. So he's saying, I'm Mesha, the son of God, from Dibon. My father ruled in Moab for 30 years. So it could be his father was named after a god, and he's not calling himself the son of God, because it says, my father ruled in Moab for 30 years. Or it could be that God ruled there for 30 years. You'd have to look at their history. Okay? And I succeeded him. I sanctified this high place, high place to Chemosh, because he protected me from all of the kings and brought me victory against all enemies. It could be that his father was deified later, and Solomon worshipped him. Omri, king of Israel, oppressed Moab for many days, for Chemosh was angry with his people. Then his son succeeded him and said, I too will oppress Moab. He said this in my own time. So here we have proof that someone's being deified, which is crazy. We have proof um, of Israel and King Omri of Israel. Okay. And Israel has been defeated, vanquished in perpetuity, and the king of Israel built Adarat for himself. But I besieged and captured the city and slew its inhabitants as a sacrificial offering for Chemosh and for Moab. And Chemosh then told me, Go and take Nebo from Israel. By night I went and I fought from dawn to midday, and I captured it and killed all who were in it, 7,000 men and male foreigners and women, female foreigners and slave girls, for I had consecrated the city of Chemosh and took the vessels of Yahweh to Chemosh. So here we have proof that his father was deified as a god. This is an amazing, amazing, amazing archaeological find. It's actually one of the most amazing archaeological finds in history in terms of steles. Amazing proof the ancestors were worshipped as gods. Whereas Anu was an abstract deity, and so was Hura Mazda and other deities like this. Then we have the Tel Dan inscription. It says, "My father went up fighting against Ab, and my father lay down. He went to his fathers, and the king of Israel penetrated into my father's land, and Hadad made me myself king." Hadad was the god of, I think, the Assyrians or the Arabs. "And Hadad went in front of me, and I departed from ... blank space of my kings, and I killed 2 powerful kings who harnessed 2,000 chariots and 2,000 horsemen. I killed Joram, or Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel. And I killed Achayahu, son of Joram, king of the house of David." King of the house of David. "And I set their land, blah, 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 blank, other, blank, and Jehu ruled over Israel, blank, siege upon." So, there is the picture of it. That's the Tel Dan inscription. There's a little statue man. Okay. And it says Dan, literally judge, was biblical Israel's northernmost city in what was then, as it is now, a fought over frontier area. It's not that far from Galilee, I'm pretty sure. The Golan Heights, in whose vicinity the site stands, were seized from Syria by the Israelis in the Six-Day War in 1967. Controversially, the Israelis have kept them ever since. Ironically, the Tel Dan stela shows the tables turned, albeit about 3,000 years ago. Its Aramaic inscription records a crushing victory by Syria over Israel. It appears to be written in the voice of the son of the victorious King Ben-Hadad of Damascus. That means king, son of God. Ben-Hadad, son of God. Sounds pretty familiar. It sounds similar. I mean, by his own account, the princely narrator played a heroic part in the engagement. In 1993, archaeologists excavating the mound of rubble that was all which remained of Dan dug up part of a large black basalt stele. Further fragments were unearthed the following year, though the stone had been badly knocked about and weathered, and the surviving inscription had more gaps than words. There was plenty here to arouse the historian's interest. In the first place, patchy though it was, the account appeared to corroborate what was already known about a time of Syrian supremacy which lasted through much of the second half of the 8th century BC. The Bible's second book of Kings, Kings 6 and 24, or 6:24, records the following: "And it came to pass that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his hosts and went up and besieged Samaria." Most exciting of all, however, was the reference in this inscription, if only in passing, to the existence of a royal house of David. Surprising as it may seem, this was the first time that scientific archaeology or scholarly research had been able to offer any sort of objective verification for one of the most important strands of the Bible story. Even now, some skeptics suggest the critical Hebrew characters are potentially ambiguous, yada yada yada. And they're not ambiguous at all. Even though that claim has been made, it is 100% bullshit. The thing about what you need to understand, and this is what atheists can never fucking get in their head, okay, is that archaeology, carbon dating is your god. You worship carbon dating. But the fact is, carbon dating is one of the most flawed sciences of all time. Although, when it works, it is accurate, okay, as far as we can tell, limited to what we know. Keep in mind, knowledge is limited, okay? It's very limited. All the knowledge in the world, even though you may not be able to absorb it all, is limited as fuck. Okay? It's very, 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 very limited. The other problem is that idiots like Israel Finkelstein, well, he's not an idiot, he is a bright guy. The thing is, he's just prejudiced. He hates religion. That's the only reason he wants to discredit it. It's not because it's true. It's just because that's his goal. Okay? And the thing with him is, he's the one that walked all over this area in Israel and picked up a bunch of potsherds. The problem with this is, and what he can't see with this, is that they picked up potsherds from the surface. The surface. Are you hearing me? The surface. They picked up potsherds from the surface. What does archaeology tell us? That you have to dig deep into the ground in what? Mounds. Okay? and areas like that. Anywhere you have to dig down to find the older debris. Well, he just scoured areas in the desert and picked up potsherds. How does he know those aren't recent? Well, they're fired. You can't carbon date a potsherd because it's fired. So instead he looks at the style of pottery. Well, the problem with that is that he was the first one to catalog the area. So he just assumed all the shit was old. Archaeology is based on a method of interpretation. Most people don't stay within the accepted method of interpretation, and that's where we get all this hokey bullshit. You can look at, for example, at Jedefra, okay, Pharaoh Jedefra of Egypt. 100 years ago, the guy that uncovered it was, I think he was French, and he looked at it and he said, oh, Jedefra's been murdered because his statues were destroyed and stuff like that. Well, we find out now that actually his pyramid was destroyed by Augustus Caesar to get back at Cleopatra. Okay? That's what happened. We know that's what happened. Okay? And so it took 100 years to change the opinion. So that's the thing. That's science. We disproved an older hypothesis. That's science. Science is not about proving anything. It's about disproving. Okay? And so the problem with atheists is atheists really are not educated, is really the problem. They read late sources and opinion polls. That's what they're reading. Their whole library, my bookshelf, if I were an atheist, would just be opinion poll books. Books with people's opinions. Okay? Rather than original sources, like the Amarna letters right here. You know, so gotta have original sources. Or primary sources. Josephus. Okay? Very important. I mean, this is what science really is. All these books here. Primary sources. So the major problem is with archaeology too is when you're not only is it open to interpretation, but it's based on corroborating evidence, like they said in that book, corroborating evidence. Kings function as corroborating evidence for the Tel Dan inscription. Okay, so if we're going to have a debate with, you know, on everything with the Bible, I mean, it's really easy to shoot down these accusations or these opinions. Like they say, oh, well, the Bible's not old. Well, we know that. The Bible we have currently, the Old Testament, by that they mean the Old Testament. The Old Testament we have, no, it's not that old. It's from about 300 BC or maybe 600 BC, maybe 500. It's not as old as the stories that are in it. The stories that are in it were taken from David's palace documents once it was destroyed. Well, why can't we find anything on David? Well, see, everything on David was burnt and taken to Babylon and used as toilet paper for the Babylonian king, really, is what really honestly happened. Babylon had a shortage of toilet paper, and so they used the scrolls. That's a joke, but really honestly, like, that's basically, in a sense, what happened if you really want to think of it. They took the stuff from the palace, they screwed it all up, they destroyed the palace, they took anything that was gold, they melted it down and remade it into idols. Okay, so, oh, it's, you know, there would be proof. Okay, really? So it comes down to the question: is an archaeologist going to be able to prove that you exist and figure out your first and last name, your age, and every other thing? No, they'll be able to figure out your age, but will they necessarily be able to figure out your name? Not necessarily, because see, people don't have names. That's an arbitrary invention of mankind. You're not born with a name, you don't have a name, and a name is nothing. If we identified people by the shape of their teeth, and someone drew the shape of your teeth or a shape of your finger or the color of your eye, then that'd be more like, or if someone drew a picture of you, that's more corroborating. Oh, his name was David. Well, that's great, even if, okay. It's all in a name. So some people get hung up in the idea of identifying someone by name, which is not always possible to do. There's plenty of people that have been dug up that we don't know who the fuck they are, and never will know who the fuck they are. And that was archaeology. An archaeologist couldn't even tell you who the fuck this person was. Okay, and then the other thing that atheists and other people really get hung up on is they don't really understand what the purpose of science is. They don't really understand, basic laws of thermodynamics, radiocarbon dating, things like that, and they don't understand how different environments preserve things differently. In a swamp, skin will be preserved as leather or whatever, because and it won't preserve certain things. There's certain things that won't be preserved in the swamp. Okay, because of acidity, pH, okay, and also because of temperature, moisture content, etc., etc., chemicals, things like that. Um, my archaeology teacher is an archaeologist. He does Celtic archaeology, and he's worked in Ireland for years, for like 30 years, and so maybe even longer. I mean, he's got all this, all this stuff on bogs that he taught us. And so the thing is that an atheist wants to come at us and talk about archaeology. How about we put the burden of proof on the atheist, or put the burden on the atheist, just a burden in general, to go take an archaeology class and show us your report card, show us your transcript, and see if you passed it, and tell us what you learned, and maybe actually do a video on what you know rather than making accusations, etc., etc. This is for anyone that makes these. Yeah, so like I said, there's problems with it. With the radiocarbon dating, you could burn a piece of paper, and then I could try to radiocarbon date it, and it won't come out accurately. It will come out 2,000 years older than what it is. And so when you have a um, margin error, margin of error that's 2,000 years gap. Now that 2,000 to you, oh, that just sounds, oh, it's just a number. 2,000 is just like the number one in anyone's head who's just hearing that. They don't really care. It's just a number. Um, but how much shit happens in a year versus how much shit happens in 2,000 years? It's so hard when we're going back and forth as Christians debating the history of Christianity. It's 2,000 years old. It is fucking hard to debate that. So much shit happened in those 2,000 years. And a lot of times we get stuck in the Renaissance, or we get stuck in the early church, or we get stuck in the 4th century because these were the most pivotal times, or we get stuck in the Middle Age history, or we get stuck in modern Christianity, and they're all a different beast. They're all completely different. And so if you know if you wanted to establish what Christian beliefs were 2,000 years ago versus now, and you did archaeology, um, it would look very different. And so that's why they date texts off of paleography rather than off of how the text looks in turn, or off of how it carbon dates. Another thing is carbon dating destroys evidence. So carbon dating is kind of stupid. There's other things you can't carbon date. They don't carbon date rocks. There's different types of dating methods besides carbon dating is another thing that people really seem to have slipped out of their head or something. Like they don't know this or something. There's a lot of different dating methods. But anyway, that's the end of this video. It's hella long. I don't even know why I did it so long. But yeah, just crazy ideas. Actually, maybe I'll do a couple more. Oh yeah, Hezekiah's tunnel inscription, exactly described as how it is in the Bible. And Hezekiah, you have to remember, that's the time of Isaiah. I'm pretty sure that's a long ass time ago. Meaning we have confirmation of the kingdom all the way back to the time of David. Um, then there's another Shebna the steward tablet mentioned in the Bible. There is actually a lot of stuff here. A stone of sacrifice. Um, and then it has a Christian inscription from Ethiopia. They have stuff from Persia and Ahura Mazda, etc. What you'll notice too, what's very interesting is you look at cuneiform, And what cuneiform does is it spreads east and it spreads west. Okay, it's the earliest writing that we know of. Well, in that region. I mean, there was also writing being developed later in Europe. But anyway, what happens is this language, it spreads into Turkey. Okay, it spreads into Ugarit. Okay, it spreads into Persia. Okay, Elam. Then this writing diffuses through a process of diffusion. Um, it spreads into Asia, into all these other areas in Asia, all throughout what we call Asia now. And then into Egypt, it mixes with these hieroglyphic writings, and slowly what it does is when it goes into these areas, it mixes with the locals. The locals put their own touch on it. Ugarit turns in, slowly into this Phoenician Paleo-Hebrew, which turns into Greek, and then Latin, and then what's weird is you got the runic, and then what happens in the East is it's turning into Chinese and into these Iranian languages. All of them stem from cuneiform. All of them. All of them. Every single language in the whole world, in writing. Every writing um, that can't. Every writing can be either traced directly to cuneiform or to another language that traces to cuneiform. There's so many writings. We'll call one secondary writings and one tertiary writings. With the secondary scripts, the secondary scripts all have something that comes directly out of cuneiform. Like in Asian, they have Asian languages like Japanese. They have this little box like this that has a line through the center, right? Okay, it's a box with a line through the center. Okay, that's Japanese. That's found in cuneiform. It's found in Iranian as well. We find that letters change, like G, J, and Y is a phonetic sound that changes based on population. So, when one wants to make a claim against the origins of Judaism and Christianity, one ends up refuting entire centuries of accepted science. The accepted science, and they haven't disproved it, they just deny it. It would be scientific for you to actually disprove what's been said, because all the archaeology, all the DNA, all the paleography, okay, all bibliography, all of these things, accepted sciences, historiography, everything, accepted sciences proves, maybe not in every little detail, but proves in the general details that all these things the Bible talks about took place. Why the fuck would they write it down if it didn't take place? It's the stupidest ass argument of all time. It makes atheists look like the stupid ass motherfuckers that they really are. They're stupid. They're fucking stupid. I can't believe them. They drive me crazy. Whatever. Peace be upon you. Have a good one.